So we talk about wealth inequality all the time, and everyone talks about the 1%, that it's about the 1%. But as I've mentioned many times, it really isn't the 1%, because the 1% in America, sometimes, depending on what figures you're looking at, it could be around 300,000 that you're making a year, maybe around 500,000, something like that, not obscenely rich. So an interesting new study came out at Berkeley University that it really is about the 0.1%. That's the crazy number. So we've got a graph here that's going to explain a little bit more. So right now, in the late 1920s, the bottom 90% held just 16% of America's wealth, considerably less than held by the top 0.1%, which controlled about 25%. So you can see that at the beginning of that chart on the left right there. From the beginning of the Depression until well after the Second World War, the middle class share of the total wealth rose steadily. So the numbers started separating. That was good, great for the middle class, good for the economy. But then those trends have now reversed. And just like the 1920s, the top 0.1% hold 22% of America's wealth, almost the same share as the bottom 90% of the population. And that's what you can see all the way to the right on that they basically have exactly the same amount. The 0.1 percenters, not the 1 percenters. The 0.1 percenters have the same amount of wealth as the bottom 90%. By the way, the top 1%, or the top 0.1%, I should say, consists of 160,000 families, and they average worth is about 73 million. So is the 1% thing, it just sounds good, right? Like, is that sort of...
Sounds more romantic.
It just sounds more romantic, right? Yeah. Like, you know, sometimes you just need like a bumper sticker to get things going, and if they had said, well, it's the 0.1%, that would have confused people. So sometimes you just go, it's the 1%, and that's just enough. Is this partly just messaging?
No, I mean, the 0.1% is astonishing, right? That's to anyone who can do basic math is actually more crazy and more romantic almost. That's like so stark, the inequality.
Oh, that's interesting. So really, by putting it in there, they could have drove the point home even more. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I'd sort of like to take the opportunity to shout out to my hometown, Seattle, which just raised the minimum wage to 15%. Yeah. And having a conversation, $15.
Yeah.
$15.
15% of what? That would be that's true communism.
15% of the salary of the CEO.
Yeah.
No, but
I told you they were trying to get 15% of our income.
I think that's a huge step in the right direction for sort of righting this wrong that exists right now. I mean, anyone who sort of thinks that that's going to be a terrible strategy has a really short-sighted view of how the economy works, and putting money in the pockets of the people who are at sort of the lower end of that graph is really the best sustainable way, because you're going to end up, and they're going to end up contributing to the economy better, and those companies that had to maybe initially lay off some workers because of the minimum wage hike are going to be able to hire them again. Because
So you're saying you don't believe in trickle-down economics, that if we could just give rich people more money, they'd give more little jobs to the little people? You just don't buy that?
No, I think that no, I can't even make a joke about that, no.
I believe in trickle-down economics, but I believe that everyone should participate in trickle-down economics, not just the 0.1%, you know? Yeah.
I don't begrudge these people's success. I really don't. This is what America's all about. I think everyone should have the opportunity to get. But so what do we do? What's like a really, see, every time we talk about this, then everyone just, it's just easy to hate rich people, you know what I mean? It's just so easy to do it. So what is the solution then? Like, should it be like after 50 million, you're taxed at 75%. If you get making 50 million, you're doing pretty well. Now, I know in the comments people are gonna be hating me for that even. But like, is there some way to make a tax system that actually is fair? And of course, then they'll send the money to the Cayman Islands and all that. But within a conversation that we can have in 4 minutes, like, is there anything we can do to sort of wrangle this thing in a sensible way?
Well, do you think there should just be a simple tax
So
base?
just like a flat tax for everybody?
Do you think that's how it should be? I don't know.
A flat tax for everyone above 50 million?
Well,
because flat tax is definitionally regressive.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I think that it's probably not going to be in the tax system or in the nonprofit system that we figure it out. It really is going to be in legislation that is meant to just compensate people better for the work that they're doing.
But is there any chance that legislation could actually happen? Because aren't these the guys that buy the politicians and money in politics? Like, why would the politicians go against their donors and that whole game that we talk about constantly?
It's also like, why would you participate in the giving pledge then, right? I mean, like, there are people who got there and who recognize that they got there because of, not just sort of ruthless business skill, but also like really hardworking people that they built their company on. And so and recognize that the inequality is created dramatically by the legislative system and are sort of the Giving Pledge's attempt to sort of bypass that, I think, as well, through donations to nonprofits or whatever it might be. But no, I think that personally a minimum wage hike is a good first stepping stone, and I think that there's a lot of other really interesting approaches, education and all of that, so that people can feel better about paying a higher minimum wage. But I have a question: is there anything that you guys would do for a straight week, actual labor at $15 an hour?
Is there any? I mean, I've done jobs for less than $15 an hour.
But right now in your life, as would you, go and not just because you see it as like a vacation from sort of sitting here, but you could actually see yourself doing for a month or a year. When you put yourself in their shoes, or in the shoes of someone who is working at what used to be an $8 minimum wage that's now $15, it's oh yeah, no, that's not enough to live on, and that's not a great existence.
Right, so maybe their taxes should be lower. People don't like that argument either. It's a big clusterfuck. Is there anything we can do to get America back on track? Because it seems to me that if I was in the 0.1%, it's in your own vested interest to have the rest of the people happy, because then they don't come at you with pitchforks. But it seems to me we're just angling this to the pitchfork phase.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But it's hard to crawl over a gated community carrying a pitchfork. That's the thing. You know what I mean? It's a little difficult.
That is a good point. But they can.
I watched The Purge, and it's possible.
Yeah, there you go. So if you don't want the purge, you should at least think about maybe some ways that we can get those things to separate a little bit, and let's get the middle class back on track. And subscribe right down below.